we'll now extend our understanding of the connection between the acute angle and obtuse and reflex. We'll extend that same understanding now in terms of negative angles. So we've come across negative angles before because you have graphed angles. You've drawn the graph of sine. So sine we know goes like that, but it also comes back here like this. And in this range, we're now talking about negative angles. So we know graphically we can get the sine of a negative angle. How does that now relate to our circle situation? Well, it's important to know that we start counting our angles again from the positive x-axis, but this time we're going in this clockwise direction. So for the negative angles, we go in the clockwise direction. So if I'm talking about negative 10, then I've just come back 10 degrees in this direction. As you can see, progressing around, I get to negative 90 is down here. Progressing around, I would then get to negative 180, and continuing in a clockwise direction, not anti, but in a clockwise direction this time, up here at negative 270 and around to negative 360. Now, it's just a different way of naming the angles. The properties that we worked out or just established about what's going on in the first quadrant, second quadrant, third and fourth quadrants stays the same for the trig ratios. So although we're here and we're calling it negative 20, it still will have sine is negative, tan is negative, cos of negative 20 will be a positive because cos is positive. All stations to central still applies. I guess the nice thing is this negative angle here is not closely related to the way we express our angles, which are 360 minus theta. And so we ignore the negative in this case. Around in the third quadrant, it gets messy. It gets really messy because I'm going to be talking about negative 100 degrees. Now, if I want to know the associated acute angle, that's going to be here. So it's negative 100, which is back 10, which makes this angle 80. Negative 100 actually has a connection to the acute angle 80. Now that really takes a bit of processing. When we're around over here, for example, we might be talking about negative 200, which means I've now gone an additional 20 degrees. But that's fine because in this quadrant, this theta, or this value here, is the same as the acute angle. Look, this is probably a little bit difficult for you at the moment, and it will become clearer once you've got the positive angles under control. So don't be too stressed about this at the moment. You can always come back and listen to this video again after you've well and truly established what's happening for the positive angles. So we'd say sine minus 33 is exactly the same as sine 33, and sine 330, behaves the same as negative. It wasn't a negative, the sine also of 30 degrees. But negative 120, so negative 120 is, and we're looking at the tan, and tan is positive, so it's all nice and positive here. But what angle is negative 120 associated with? Let me just rub this out and draw it on here for you. So we've come back around 120. I think it's easier initially to establish the size of this angle in here. So from 90 to 120, this angle here is 30. But that's not the angle we identify in the third quadrant. The angle that we identify is this angle here, because it's this angle that gives us the connection back to the acute angle. So in this case, it will be the tan of 60. Oh, we should write it's, what would that be? 180. It's the same as the tan of, it would be 180 plus 60, which is 180 plus 60 is 240. And the tan 240 is the same as the tan of 60. Now, there's a lot of different little methods, and your tutor might show you something else and you might grab onto that in order to make a connection between the negative angle and the positive acute angle. That's ultimately all that you need to be able to do. You might think, and just one other little way I've seen of making the connection between a negative angle and a positive angle is to think about your negative ones as 360 minus them. And in this case, that then gives me the 240. And then ultimately I go back to this idea so that ultimately I can get to there. You've eventually got to get the connection between the angle and a positive acute angle. So whatever works for you is fine. I'll stop the video there and do these examples in another video.